This podcast is part of the Batman Universe Podcast Network, hosted by the BatmanUniverse.net. Check out everything related to Batman and the entire Bat family at the BatmanUniverse.net, including news and original content related to comics, movies, television, merchandise, video games, and more. Also, check out some of the other unique podcasts that TBU has to offer. Consider supporting this podcast by becoming a patron on Patreon. Even $1 can go a long way in supporting this content that you enjoy. Look for a link over at thebatmanuniverse.net to offer your support now. And now, on with the show.
Hi, my name is Peter Tomasi.
Hi, this is James Tynan IV.
Hi, I'm Dan Jurgens.
Hey, I'm Dustin Wynn.
This is Jim Lee.
Hey, this is Scott Snyder.
This is Mark Hamill speaking.
This is Kevin Conroy.
This is Tim Sale.
Hello, everyone. I'm Batman, and you're listening to my podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the Batman Universe Comic Podcast, Season 13, Episode 19. I'm your host, Ian, and I have with me...
This is Steph.
And this is Theo.
And today we're going to have our first all Fear State, all the time episode. Not a whole lot of news coming out because probably we're going to have a bunch of news dropping at the end of this week. So possibly the very day that you listen to this podcast with the first day of DC Fandom. So we'll definitely be paying attention to Fandom. They didn't do a lot of comic announcements last time, but they did do some fun behind the scenes comics panels last year with Fandom, so I'm hoping for at least that. Maybe they will decide to do big announcements since they don't really have New York Comic Con, which is usually happening at this time. Actually, no, it was happening, but they didn't do any announcements. So I think they're trying to save that for their own proprietary online worldwide convention. Keep your eye on the Batman Universe for coverage of that if we can do it. We also had some news of the Batman Catwoman special, which originally was going to be drawn by John Paul Leon, who tragically died very young early this year. I believe Tom King has said that Leon had finished about half of the book, and so they're probably going to collect other artists to do a tribute to Leon as well as the story that he was originally working on. Some somewhat odd news. Originally, a small sort of fan, semi-professional film organization had announced they were going to do a live-action adaptation of the Batman Wayne Family Adventures webtoons, which you can check out Steph and I's round-robin reviews that we've been doing on the website. And they'd shown cast and behind the scenes and a small trailer showing people in costume. And then all of a sudden, everything vanished. No announcements. And the cast who were active on social media started talking about how things happen for a reason and stuff. You know, the kind of things that you say when something bad happens and you're hoping to sort of have a good mental attitude towards that. So I think that it has been canceled, even though it was announced as official. And I have a theory about that. I think that Webtoons had approved the adaptations, but Warner Brothers had not. And we've seen this kind of bifurcated approval process before in DC. We've had people announce something and then Warner Brothers takes it back because it doesn't want to deal with X, Y, or Z consequence. But I am kind of disappointed. They did have some pretty cool cast members, especially I think the cast for Cassandra Cain. She was like a martial artist, and some of the stuff of her practicing looked really cool. So I thought that could have been really cool to see Cassandra Cain played by a martial artist. But as far as we can tell, it's either delayed for a significant period of time or it's canceled. The fact that it's completely vanished without an announcement after a fairly splashy announcement, I think that does indicate it's canceled. Although they seem to be trying to memory hole it, so we'll have to wait and see what that was. Any thoughts on any of our news this week?
I was a little sad. I was glad that we'd finally get a live-action Damien, and then it disappeared.
That's true. We have not had a live-action Damien yet. We've had several animated ones.
Yes.
But no live-action. And it would have been the second live-action Stephanie Brown, and technically the second live-action Cassandra Cain, but anyone who tells me that Cassandra Cain in the Birds of Prey movie was...
No.
She wasn't. She just was not Cassandra Cain.
She was not.
In any way.
Stop. Just stop. Don't. Just.
So it would have been the first live-action Cassandra Cain.
Yes, just
All
I'm
right.
not gonna be able to sleep tonight just thinking about that.
All
I
right.
I am disappointed because I did not see the trailer, so I missed out on seeing the first appearance of
It
I have to
and
it
say it wasn't that impressive as a trailer.
it really felt more like a teaser trailer for Titans.
Yeah, and that's the wrong marketing for
Yeah.
webtoons, what they're doing. Like the webtoon should have been like quick jokes and funny, character moments, which is what the webtoon is, and that's why we love it. And trying to market it like it's TV. Like, there's this great YouTube sketch about Titans and how they pitch it. What about Mean Titans? I mean, that's kind of what Titans markets itself as. So,
would you all be disappointed if I was to say I have not watched an episode of Titans this season?
Oh, I haven't watched it since season 1.
I have watched most, but not all of season 2. I have not watched any of the new season. I probably should, because it sounds like they're doing some fun stuff, but it's just not the kind of show that I'm really excited about, even though I do like the fact that it has 3 Robins at this point. Alright, but that is kind of a side note. Let us begin our reviews, and we're going to start with Batman number 114, Part 3 of Fear State.
I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman.
Batman 114, written by James Tynion IV, illustrated by Jorge Jimenez, and colored by Tumu More. We begin down in Eden, Poison Ivy's subterranean lair. Miracle Molly tinkers with some technology while she listens to the anti-oracle spread messages of fear. Molly barks in frustration, which catches Queen Ivy's attention. She sees that Molly is also mad at the people of Gotham, too. But Molly clarifies she's mad at the systems in place that manipulate the people of Gotham. She's mad at the parrots in the media, at Mayor Nakano and Simon Saint. Ivy notes that Molly brought technology into her garden. Molly apologizes, explaining she needs something to tinker with. Plus, her drones could come in handy. After explaining to Ivy what the Insanity Collective is, Molly also tells her that without the emotional baggage, Ivy could be one of the greatest heroes. Ivy tells Molly that her emotional baggage is what gives her the tools to survive, though she notes that Molly has an interesting and optimistic perspective. As the two continue to talk, Molly realizes what Scarecrow's plan is. Scarecrow is going to use the mind machine built by Master Wise on the entire city. High above Gotham City, Simon Saint moves his UFO HQ over to where Peacekeeper X, Ricardo, has Peacekeeper 01, Sean Mahoney, surrounded. Saint tells Peacekeeper X that they want to bring in Sean Mahoney alive at all costs. If that's not possible, then Peacekeeper X has the firepower and authorization to do whatever is necessary. On the ground, Peacekeeper X tries to talk sense into Sean, offering to help his fellow magistrate colleague first. Perched above, Scarecrow listens in, and he uses his Mad Hatter mind control to distort what Sean sees and hears. To Sean, Peacekeeper X appears as a monster. Scarecrow tells Sean that he's going to need to kill Batman in order to save Gotham. Sean breaks the sedative in Peacekeeper X's hands, then blocks a salvo of bullets from the other Peacekeepers around them. He disposes of the small army, moving in on Peacekeeper X last. They fight, and Sean gets the upper hand, but flees. Before Peacekeeper X can pursue, Batman intervenes and sends Peacekeeper X to the ground. Saint unleashes his full arsenal, and Batman is surrounded now. Peacekeeper 01 books it into a building far cover, with Scarecrow taunting him all the way in his head. While Batman is busy with magistrate soldiers and drones, Peacekeeper X tracks down Sean. Once again, Peacekeeper X tries to talk sense to his fellow Peacekeeper. This time Sean responds with some grenades, which force Peacekeeper X to use heavy artillery that rips a hole through the entire building. The two Peacekeepers continue to battle brutally, with Scarecrow egging Sean on. Scarecrow finally pushes Sean to do what he must, and Sean beats Peacekeeper X to death. Simon Saint, beside himself, can't allow any of the technology to fall into Batman's hands now that X is gone. He orders that all of his drones and techs, including Peacekeeper X's suit, self-destruct. As Batman escapes the huge explosion in Gotham City, he's greeted by Miracle Molly. She knows exactly what Scarecrow is going to do, and she offers to help Batman stop him. So, we're at the halfway point of the Fear State event, and our first question will be, what do you think that the ultimate climax will be for Fear State?
Oh. Well, I think if Tynion was sticking around, I'd have hope that maybe things didn't go so well, and we'd have more to work through, because I think that would add a little more. Since Future State's been taken away, it might be cool to have Fear State last a little longer. So it would be kind of cool if they failed and everyone in town went nuts. But there'll probably be some satisfactory, non-satisfactory, happy ending conclusion, and they'll stop Scarecrow from doing whatever it is he's going to do.
Well, we do know that Batman's going to leave Gotham at the end of this story. So can you think of any way that this confrontation could motivate him to leave the city that he's given up everything to protect?
Well, I guess it could be that he doesn't save the city. That between Ghostmaker and Robin and
New Batman and
everyone else managed to fix the issue, and then Batman somehow is MIA through it and realizes that city doesn't need him. Or maybe he does something. Maybe he kills Scarecrow, and so he goes on a soul-searching journey to figure out, who am I?
Scarecrow.
I know he's not going to kill Scarecrow. Maybe he'll kill Simon Saint.
He's not going to kill anybody. He's Batman.
Well, that's why he might leave. Or maybe he's going on his honeymoon.
Yeah, good luck with that one. You obviously didn't read Ian's last article on.
Yep, my articles make it very clear that DC is a jerk and is never going to let them get married.
That's why they're in the comics together so much lately, and I feel that's not cool. It's like, I don't want them in the movies. I don't want them in the movies. I want them in the comics.
I see either one or two things happening. I see one, kind of what Steph mentioned. The family is there. They're able to hold things down, and Bruce takes leave to find himself. Or I see Bruce saving the city, as he always does, but this time the reaction is, not what we've seen before, and it's more against him than anything. Especially since we know that Nakano's still going to be around. And from that, he may say, you know what, screw it, deuces, and take leave. So either one or two is what I could possibly see happen. I don't think it's going to be a situation where he fails. I think it's going to be a situation where either the family chips in and he sees that, the family can hold things down in Gotham, or he does Batman things, and after he does his Batman things, the city still rejects him, and he's like, well, screw it.
Here's a suggestion, what if Batman succeeds, but the machine erases the memory of everybody that he succeeded, so that they know something happened, but then Nakano and maybe even Simon Saint claims credit for it, and Batman's like, I can't win.
I think...
Isn't that kind of sort of what I said?
Well, but like I'm saying specifically, a key part is that the machine erases people's memories of what Batman did.
What if the machine erases Batman's trauma and he's like, I don't want to be Batman anymore?
That would be really extreme. I think that would be really interesting, but that would be really extreme.
That's kind of like, not really the opposite, but kind of the opposite of the Happy Pill urban legends.
I mean, it's what they already did in Super Heavy, so that's also why I kind of don't
think
so.
That's true.
And do we know that? I mean, I know that the issue is, and we're all going to be at a loss until DC decides it's a good enough time to announce who's going to be replacing Williamson, because he's only on for this 4-issue arc, right?
So far, it's possible that he's going to be on longer, but I would doubt it.
Yeah, just he's got so much right now.
Yeah.
He's writing everything in the Bible. But I mean, I don't even know how long this thing is going to last. With Batman leaving Gotham, at some point he has to come back, and if Batman is going monthly for this 4-issue arc, which I believe it is, that's enough time for a sort of a story that will allow him to make his way back. I don't know. I just think there's a whole lot of stuff being left on the table. I think Heinen leaving wasn't as planned as it sounds. I mean, when we were reading Warzone, I mean, we were supposed to have this story with Bane and the Joker. We were supposed to have this story with Queen Ivy, and it seems we're not getting any of that. You know what I'm saying? We were supposed to get another No Man's Land with her tearing the city down from below, and it doesn't. It seems like all we're getting now is just the threat. Now, again, we still have 2 issues, but I just don't know. It's just so much seems incomplete.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot we can speculate about, but we have so few actual hard pieces of information that I don't want to put too much hope or weight on them. I just kind of thought it would be fun to speculate since we do have more information now. Does it bother you that Batman seems to be a bit of a backseat character in this issue?
No, because I think stories where your titular character is just always there, like, I get bored with that. And there's only so much from their point of view you can get. And it doesn't help flesh out other characters. And I liked seeing other people without Batman around. I liked seeing the fight without Batman for about half of it. I like seeing the tension between the peacekeepers without Batman around. I liked seeing Ivy smiling, probably because there's no X chromosomes around. I thought that was okay because it's his book, but that doesn't mean he has to carry it. The writer has to carry it, and I think he's doing a pretty good job.
I think that's part of the reason why I enjoyed that first arc in Detective as much as I did, because even though it was a Batman book, it was a Bruce Wayne story. And it's okay to have Batman not be front and center all the time, as long as the story remains interesting. Because let me tell you, between the Secret Files and this issue here, I am really starting to like Miracle Molly. And I know we asked and discussed the question last episode about who we hope sticks around. The more I read with Miracle Molly, the more I want her to stick around. She is they are a very interesting character. Does she refer to herself as?
I think she calls herself a she. I could be wrong, but I don't.
I think it was the kid she was with.
I know the kid was. Yeah, the kid was, but I couldn't remember if she was. But I really enjoyed that character, and yeah, I think she would be a great addition to the Batman mythos moving forward. But yeah, to answer your question, no, I don't have an issue with Batman not being front and center because the story's still good.
I would agree that the story is still good, and he's doing a really good job of getting you connected to the characters. Side note, I did read through all of Once and Future this week, and Dan Mora is amazing. Connected to his...
You were just reading Once and Future?
Yeah.
What's that?
It's a modern King Arthur / zombie apocalypse story.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Drawn by Dan Mora.
You gotta read it.
I gotta read it.
It's quite worthwhile. I would definitely say it's worth reading.
Gillen is so good. So it's good enough to where it went from it was initially supposed to be a 6-issue mini, I believe, and maybe after issue 2 or issue 3, Boom just said, you know what, just make it an ongoing. And the way in which Karen Gillan has been able to just continue this story and throw out new ideas to keep the story going, it's just been great. So we started out with Arthur, and then we got Beowulf, and it's just now it's Arthur, and Merlin's back, and
Lancelot.
It's just, you gotta read it down.
It's very well done. It's basically what Warren Ellis and Declan Shalvey's Injection would be if Injection wasn't obsessed with cannibalism and weird sex.
You gotta read it.
Yeah, I don't recommend Injection. I do recommend Once and Future.
Yes. And thank you for listening in to the Once and Future podcast.
Oh, Gus is gonna be so mad. All right, so last question. Where do you think Sean Mahoney is going to end up? Is he going to survive Fear State?
I don't know how he can. He's missing so much of his body.
I mean, Two-Face is also missing large chunks of his body.
That's true. Oh, gosh. I hope not. If he does, he's gonna be in Blackgate or Arkham when it rebuilds. He's poor man. If he survives, he won't survive. He's not going to be himself. He'll be a raving lunatic. He already is a raving lunatic.
Yeah, I mean, Scarecrow with the Mad Hatter tech has basically picked out his brain, chopped it into liver, and put it back in. Scarecrow's really just been vicious to Peacekeeper.
No, I don't think he survives. I think at some point, Scarecrow will have his use of him, and once that's all said and done, he will relieve him of his misery. And again, this is just further proof that we're no longer on track for Future State, and I'm okay with that because it's been a good story. But I don't see how Mahoney survives this, because this is the Mahoney we're looking at is not the Mahoney we saw in Fear State under any circumstance, and I just don't see him coming back from this unless, and this is a strong unless, they're able to get that mind machine configured to somehow fix him in some type of way. But I just don't see it. And I think he's as dead as the designer is.
Well, we'll have to see what happens in the Peacekeeper one-shot that is coming next week. Maybe it'll pull a Miracle Molly. I don't think it'll be quite as powerful because Miracle Molly took us all by surprise. But I think it might do something for us. We'll see.
We'll see.
We will see.
I do want to say that I love Molly at the end with her "come with me if you want to not die" pose.
Oh man, Tynan just loves... I mean, it's such an appropriate cyberpunky thing with the Terminator reference. I'm wondering if he's going to throw any Matrix references soon. I mean, technically we did a Matrix thing where Ghostmaker and Batman, went into Batman's memories. So
True.
This is a real cool cyberpunk Batman. I think it's nice. I think it's a fun change of flavor. Plus, of course, Jorge Jimenez just makes it look amazing as usual.
Oh, for sure.
Although that does make me a little apprehensive because next issue there's only a couple pages done by Jorge Jimenez, and the rest of it's going to be drawn by Bengal. And I like Bengal, although I know one of our listeners very much does not. But it's going to be a little different.
I don't hate Bengal, but I'm not crazy about Bengal either.
Like the
You know,
tiger?
No, he's an artist. He did a bunch of Batgirl of Burnside stuff.
You say that's a very talented animal.
I don't care how well it draws. The fact that it's drawing is amazing.
It's amazing. Why are you complaining?
Send it in and collect the dough.
Well, you gotta live stream it. All right, so let's get to our backup. We've got Clown Hunter Part 3. And this is written by Brandon Thomas, our man, and artist Jason Howard. Clown Hunter battles against the Joker monster seen in the last few issues. As he overtakes it, two voices call out to him to grab their hand. One of the voices is unknown, but the other is Scarecrow, trying to lure Clown Hunter into a deeper state of fear. Scarecrow then taunts Clown Hunter. But he keeps up the fight and is knocked off the rooftop once more. At first, he's persistent in his desire to be alone as he falls. Suddenly, he wakes up and realizes he's been so wrong to go alone, and reaches out with his hand. Tim Drake, calling himself Red Robin, catches Clown Hunter, saving him from hitting the pavement. Actually, is that right? Does he call himself Red Robin in this one?
Yes, he did.
Okay.
I think.
Well, it's either this or Outsiders. Reading them all
No,
together.
he does.
Okay.
He doesn't both.
Oh, good. I think they
He
finally
just doesn't
committed
have the
to
double
something.
R because whatever.
Well, because the double R looks weird. I say this as someone who proudly has a Tim Drake with the double R action figure on my bookshelf next to my comics, next to Steph, where he belongs. But the double R is awkward. Yeah, it's just awkward. So, I mean, R can stand for Red Robin because it's the same letter. You don't need to do it twice.
Are you going to finish the summary or is that...
No, that was it.
Oh, because that's not how it ends.
It isn't?
He ends up invited into the Batcave and gets his bat confiscated.
Okay,
sort
this
of.
is not my fault. This is what the summary
But then
said.
they work together, and Bao is a proud member of the Bat family now. Happy the end.
Okay.
Wait, what?
Well, I mean, that's my interpretation of the ending. He's allowed to be at the Bat computer.
Yes, Tim Drake does take Clown Hunter to the Batcave, and he invites him to join him. Which leads me to my question, which is, where does Clown Hunter fit best in the different character combinations we've seen? We've seen him paired with Batman. We've seen him paired with Leslie Tompkins. We've seen him paired with Jason, Red Hood. And we've seen him now paired with Tim, Red Robin. Who do you think offers the best way forward for Clown Hunter's character?
Probably Jason or Damien, I think, because...
Damien was not on the list.
Yes, he is, because I put him there.
He's fine.
It's rebellion, then.
He's got to come home sometime, and when he does, he might have a new protege to work with. But what I'm saying is that both those characters have, I think, the most trauma and would be able to relate to Bao the most, I think, other than Batman. But Batman has so many children now. He's just doesn't have time. So that would be, if you're going for relatability, I think those ones. But if you're going for compatibility, then maybe an opposites attract kind of thing would work. So Tim or, I don't know, Steph.
I think that would be interesting. I think it's clear that the current thing is to push him with Tim, but they've pushed him with Red Hood and Batman in the past too, and Leslie too.
And I think those all worked.
I mean, yeah, I think they have all worked because the stories have generally... Well, okay.
Not the Leslie thing.
Well, that didn't really count.
I say it counts because the annual is awesome.
It doesn't.
But she's not
really Batman.
vigilante.
But I personally think that Bao needs to find a life outside of being a vigilante because vigilante is connected with such darkness for him.
That's true.
As long as it's not Leslie. Leslie will spend an entire issue threatening him and saying you don't need to do this and psycho Babo stuff to say, Bao, you need to give it up. Don't be like that guy. No.
What does she know? What do you think, Thea? Who should he be with?
It easily it's either Jason or Damien.
I'm outnumbered on this podcast.
I honestly think so. I honestly think the one that might be best would be Jason, because Jason has lived the life of a killer in the same sense that Bao is, and has been able to get over that somewhat, whereas Damien was just stone cold assassin, and those two together might do a lot more damage than we may want to see in a comic book these days. That's not for mature audiences. So
I think that Bao needs a father figure, and I think Jason fills that really well.
I think, yeah. And again, his experiences allow him to relate better.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to do this. I've done it. I've taken lives too before Bruce brought me back in.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be my first choice. But hell, I could see him and Damien just ramstacking Gotham and sending everybody into their homes scared of those two.
Bao and Tim would technically be around the same age, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
About 16, 17.
I could see Bao getting enough of Tim and pulling a Damien and trying to kill him.
Are you sure you're not just projecting?
Yeah. We get enough of that with Dick, so we don't need Tim doing it too. So, I'm a little disappointed Damien didn't succeed back in Grant Morrison days, but no, don't put him with Bao. He have enough issues going on anyway, and I'm gonna just leave it at that.
We have a whole podcast dedicated to Tim,
No, Rob would never invite me on.
Okay. So, let us give this issue a rating out of 5 bloody peacekeepers.
I did love the conclusion to Bao's story. It was a little long, but that's not the question for a rating. And gosh, I just really was drawn into the tension between the peacekeepers, and I actually was super sad when Ricardo got face smushed. Oh, he was so cute. I mean, I'm sure he had character. It was a deep burst. But he was so cute. And he was kind of cool, even though he was a baddie. Golly. I feel like we're always giving these 3.5, so I feel like I want to give more, but I guess there wasn't a lot of meat in this one. It was just a very well-dressed vegetable. Can I say that?
A well-dressed vegetable, eh?
It wasn't tons of meat, but it was a well-dressed vegetable. So 3.5. 3.5 bloody peacekeepers for this well-dressed vegetable.
I am going to give it a slight uptick. I don't think it was a 4, but it was just a little bit more than a 3.5. And I probably down-ticked it from a 4 because I was not crazy about the Clown Hunter story. So for me, I would say 3.75.
I'm going to say 3.5 as well. I think this was above average. I did really like both. I like the main story a lot, and I think it was a nice conclusion, although I do think that it was definitely better as like a one-part story. So that gives us an average of 3.56 and a mode of 3.5, because Scott also gave it a 3.5 over on the website. And I would like to thank Scott for writing the summary of this issue that we used. So thank you to our reviewer.
Whether you are a first-time TBU Comics podcast listener,
a 13-year veteran, or anything in between. We'd love to hear what you think about this episode or any of the comics we discussed. Send emails to tbu@thebatmanuniverse.net. Join our Discord server linked at thebatmanuniverse.net. Send us a tweet at TBU_comics. Or, if you're a patron, leave us a comment on our Patreon page. We'd also love it if you left us a review on iTunes. We'd love to read your comments on the next episode of the Batman Universe Comics Podcast. Batman may claim he works alone, but we know that he needs the Bat Family. Join the TBU Bat Family and let us know what you think.
So, we're back and we're going to talk about all of the tie-in issues of Fear State to this point. And we're going to ask some questions about how they fit in to the Fear State narrative. So, let us get started. This is mostly by release order, although I am going to group the 2 issues of I Am Batman together because I don't see the point of separating them. So, I Am Batman issues 1 and 2. These issues see Jace Fox continuing his mission as Batman, fighting street-level crime as violence just escalates all over the city. We see the vigilante/villain anti-hero anarchy being gunned down in cold blood. We see Commissioner Montoya struggling to keep order in her own forces, who are fighting with each other over the victims and the perpetrators of this violence. And we see Jace declaring himself to be Batman several times while punching people. So, what do we think about these first 2 official issues? Although I still don't understand why we had 0, 1, 2. I don't understand we just had 1, 2, 3. The first issue felt like a first issue. It didn't feel like the second issue was more firsty. So, what do we think about these 2 issues of I Am Batman?
I wasn't blown away by the first one. I think it didn't drag, but I didn't think it was that great. I liked the second one a lot better. I thought it was pretty cool that him revealing himself as not the Batman was what caused the fear. Because
so awesome. Just look like damn Batman. I love just saying that was so awesome.
It was. He's like, I'm not your Batman. He's like, oh crap, he could kill us. And so I thought that was actually pretty cool. I don't see how it's really a Fear State tie-in other than it's happening during Fear State, which all the other books seem to have their own like fear villain. I don't know, whatever. That's fine. I'm actually fine with that. I'm more okay with this than some of the other tie-ins.
The only thing that really irked me between the 2 issues, the only thing was the death of Anarchy.
I'm very angry about this.
I don't know if I am not crazy about that at all. But I think the one thing that ties it to Fear State is the presence of Seer, and I'm wondering if Seer is going to be Jace's big bad moving forward, even after Fear State. But yeah, I just can't. The art has been great. I definitely prefer the art than what we got in the digital series. But I just can't get over them just killing Lonnie for no apparent reason whatsoever.
Yep, I agree.
Are we doing thumbs up, thumbs down type of stuff?
Thumbs up, thumbs down, neutral.
I think neutral for the first one, which I think that's what I gave it before, and then a thumbs up-ish for the second one.
It's gonna be neutral for both of me. Had it, or maybe I can't remember if I gave the first issue thumbs down or not. But issue 2 would have been a thumbs up for me had it not been for Anarchy's death. That just doesn't sit well with me. So neutral it is.
Yeah, I'm also gonna say neutral, just because there's a lot of good stuff in it, but there's also a lot of stuff that I'm just like, okay, so why are you making everyone terrible? like everyone is unlikable and kind of nasty to each other. I'd like some bonding with each other. The Second Son miniseries did have some bonding within the Fox family, at least between, Tiffany and Jace. This one has none of that. Everyone's just at each other's throats, and so that darkness. And I know it's Fear State, and I know that's supposed to be kind of the point, but it's not something I enjoy. So that's kind of a bummer, and leads it to being a neutral for me on both. Let's move to Catwoman number 35. We have the aftermath of her battle with Father Valley, in which Detective Hadley was killed. We have the villains seeking redemption, including Clayface, Firefly, Cheshire, Knockout, and Riddler. They're all fighting together, but Riddler seems to split off and start joining the Penguin, trying to get revenge for what Catwoman did in Joker War. Remember, in Catwoman number 25, she stole from all the villains. And Maggie leaves to protect herself because she thinks that Selina's dragging people down with her, like Hadley. And we see Selina terrified that Batman is dead with the Seer, the evil anti-Oracle's announcement. So, what did we think of...
Was this the first time Shoes showed up as the Cheshire?
I feel like we've seen it before.
No, it was the second or third time we've seen that.
It was? Okay, I couldn't remember.
Because that's her daughter? Question mark?
That's whose daughter?
Cheshire's.
Yeah, it is Cheshire's daughter.
Yeah.
So it's weird that she's in the book. And also her daughter.
I just couldn't remember if that was her first time showing up in mask.
And then at the end, you have Harley and the gardener. Doing something for some reason. What was your question? Is this good?
Yeah.
Am I happy? Hadley is dead.
It is a very sad thing.
It's so sad. He was so nice. He was too nice. He shouldn't have been that nice. That's alright, I guess. I'm okay with her battling her villain who's been there kind of all along. And also, I don't know. There's a lot going on in this book. Like, I had even forgotten that the villains showed up and were trying to reform because there's just a lot going on.
I mean, because we always had Croc and Basil who was trying to turn over a new leaf. So it's okay for them to bring some of the guys along with them.
Yeah, but there's a lot going on. I don't hate it. It's well written. I mean, there's a lot going on and me not really quite understanding. It's still well written and engaging, and I'm enjoying it. So that's something. It's just a lot.
Well,
like I'm going through this and like, how is there this much in this one book? Whatever. It's a little confusing also to like put your finger on how it relates to Fear State. Like, what is her involvement in Fear State? Obviously, Fear State is touching this book, but how is Selina going to get involved with that is the question.
Well, first of all, Hadley had to die. I'm sorry. Sorry, he was in competition with the Batman. So
No, he wasn't.
Yes, he was.
Yes, he was. He had to die. Sorry. Anyone who wants to at me at that, come at me. But,
At
TBU Theo on Twitter.
At Batman_for life. At me. But no, I am not upset that Hadley is dead. I am a little disappointed that the whole Father Valley thing isn't over. I especially knowing that Ron B is going to be leaving the book. I wish that would have been something that we could have had a conclusion to. But it's definitely, situated within Fear State and everything that's going on. I just, as Steph said, need to want to see how this book integrates more. It's gonna need to be more than an issue of Bruce showing up to save Selena and then leaving. So, but yeah, I've always been a fan of Ron B since he's been on this book, and good issue. But yeah, rest in peace, Hadley. Don't come back. Don't put him in task.
Sad.
Don't put him in Task Force V, even though I know I'm not going to read it.
Zombie Hadley. That would be so weird.
Oh, I do want to say, police don't do chalk outlines of bodies. It disturbs the crime scene. That's not a thing that you do. Just want to know. Hadley had a chalk outline, and I was like, no, he didn't. One, because he's not dead, but two.
Okay.
The denial is strong in this one.
She's at the denial stage right now. Eventually, she'll get to. How did you feel sorry for someone who genuinely had feelings for Selena?
That's okay. Who wouldn't? I do. I love her. I'm not competition with Batman.
Okay, but you loving Selena is not the same as his feelings for Selena. And Bruce called him out on it. You have feelings too.
That's okay.
You
She's
have to
very
die.
lovable.
All's fair in love and war, and you lost, buddy. So see ya. Wouldn't want to be.
Definitely wouldn't want to be.
We are learning so much this episode. All right, so how does this fit into Fear State?
It doesn't really, not yet. I think it's decent job doing English words of like setting her up in the environment of Fear State, but right now, like, and I think that's it so far. It's just Fear State is going on around her, but there's so much of her own crap going on, she doesn't have time for that. Except that she thought Bruce was dead. And now Harley is there with Gardner, trying to get Ivy involved somehow.
Oh, good Ivy. So we got Queen Ivy. What we want to call Catwoman Ivy?
Kidnapped Ivy?
She really kidnapped Ivy?
Well, she certainly was for a while.
Ivy was kidnapped.
Yeah, true.
She's put in a jar. Jar Ivy.
Oh yeah, let's call her Jar Ivy. I like it.
What happens when Jar Ivy and Queen Ivy meets?
Do we get Queen Ivy in a jar?
Hopefully not.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I think that they're treating Fear State more as a setting rather than the titles sort of contributing. So like, and I feel that's a little different than the way they did Joker War, because Joker War you had that Detective Comics 1025 issue where Batwoman actually rescued Lucius Fox. That was like a significant plot point. And then in Catwoman foiled the villain's plans for Bruce's money in Catwoman. So like it was a key and essential plot point for Joker War. These tie-in issues feel like they're telling side stories, their own side stories, rather than being new chapters of the ongoing story. Would you agree or do you disagree? Do you think that some of them are more essential to the ongoing Fear State story?
It's kind of like what Steph said earlier. It's like it's more like, it's not like what you're saying occurred with Joker War. It's more like what Steph is saying. It's like each book has its own onion layer of fear that it's dealing with. Catwoman's dealing with her own personal issues, and Alleytown's fallen, and she feels, she's having all these emotions because she feels it's partly her fault. And it's going on in the other books as well. In Detective, it's the fear is the parasites who are still around, Steph.
No, they're not. There's no parasites.
Wow. Yeah, denial is not just a river in Egypt, Steph.
Mm-hmm. It's my happy place.
Apparently.
But so that's what it feels like. It's like each book has its own sense of fear that it's trying to address. Now, is it possible to do in the other Bat books? Yeah, I don't see how it can actually happen between Tech and Batman. Those books should be completely tied together,
Yeah.
and they're not. And so yeah, I'm in the Steph boat and kind of the Ian boat too, where there's these different layers of fear, and it's just that the Scarecrow story is central to what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, obviously we'll have to wait and see, but right now it really does feel like, I don't know, like we're missing something. Moving on, we have the Miracle Molly.
Thumbs up, thumbs down?
Oh, duh. I assumed we were all just going to say thumbs up, but okay. Thumbs up, thumbs down, neutral.
I think thumbs up.
Those thumbs up.
Yeah, I would say a thumbs up. After last issue felt a bit underwhelming, this issue was a return to form for me.
Yeah, there's been very few issues of Ron B writing that I have not enjoyed on Catwoman. Now, some of those side issues with those guest writers we can do without, but thumbs
up. All right, so let's move on to Batman Secret Files, Miracle Molly. We talked a little bit about how we love this issue last time, but let's give a quick summary. It's basically Batman Returns, Selina Kyle's story, except that instead of becoming Catwoman, Mary becomes Miracle Molly, a cyberpunk transhuman vigilante who works for an insanity collective. She's in a marriage which is... Her husband seems to truly care about her, but he also doesn't seem to know her struggles, and his family is very cruel to her. Her boss is an incredibly slimy and creepy, manipulative jerk who refuses her insight, and when she tries to push past him, he threatens her and she accidentally kills him, leading to her fleeing to the Insanity Collective, erasing her memory, and becoming Miracle Molly. And it ends with her robbing her former family, and her husband sees her and knows who she is, and she doesn't know who he is, and she leaves because she doesn't know anymore. I mean, this was just a deeply moving story. It had very unique art by Danny, and it's not an art I'd want to see on every comic, but it really worked for this one, that the emotions really flowed through the more abstract spaces.
Yeah, definitely. It was a little deceiving with that cover. Because that was very manga cover and then very not manga art. And actually the art did put me off at first, but you are so right. It really reflected the emotion of the story, and it really pulled me in. And by the end, I was kind of sad it was over. Yeah, this was definitely a very, very good comic. I think Molly's story would be worth the entire Stupid Fear State thing. Even if I decided I hated the rest of Fear State, Molly's creation, I think I'm agreeing with Theo, is becoming more and more worth everything.
And I think that all of us have been pretty positive on Fear State. We're definitely not negative on it right now.
No. Not at all.
So that does say that this is a standout for...
Well, it's like I said earlier, the more I read about Molly, the more I like the character, and this was the hook, that first got to me upon reading more about her. I know she appeared in some of the earlier issues of Batman leading into Fear State, but this issue was just wow. And it's interesting that Ian called it a Batman Returns lookalike, because I did not really see it that way until he mentioned it, but I really do see it now. But yeah, I definitely dug this story. If you haven't read it yet, you're missing out.
Obviously, since this is mostly a flashback, actually this is all a flashback. None of this actually takes place after the Fear State starts. But I would say it's really key to understanding who Molly is, and Molly's a big part of Fear State. So would you say this was sort of an essential story to understand Fear State?
If Mr. Wise's machine and his motivation for making the machine, because it'd be easy to say Mr. Wise made this machine and so he's a bad guy. No. I mean, yeah, but not in like a straightforward kind of way.
Not like a Scarecrow kind of bad guy.
Yeah, this is not a Scarecrow kind of bad. This is like a Steve Jobs kind of bad guy.
A drinking your own Kool-Aid kind of bad.
Yeah, maybe drinking. Yeah. Let's see that one. So I don't know if it's essential to understand Fear State, but I think it's essential to add depth to Fear State, and especially to Molly and even Mr. Wise, because even though you never, do you see him at the end? You might see him at the end, but you really don't even see him, but he's an integral part of her story. In fact, I think when Ian and I were first talking about this, there's just a lot of voiceover in this, because every time she watches a Mr. Wise video, it's just a voiceover. But it was interesting, as opposed to the Punchline podcast issue, which was not interesting and did not get you hooked and was not good, in my opinion.
I still think it was good, but only as a backup. It shouldn't have been all at once.
It's very long. So this just proved that you could have just panels of a dude talking and it still kind of pull you in and be interesting.
I think it's because of the really strong work that Tynan and Danny did in pulling you into Mary/Molly's mind, like her emotions. You felt for her. You, even when you didn't necessarily agree with her, you really feel her pain and her aspirations and her sense of being trapped. Like all that stuff. And then Mr. Wise, his videos give her a way out. And that is really emotionally effective. So I would say that this is, I don't know, I'd say this is kind of an essential Batman raid. It is not so far tied into Fear State yet, but it might be, depending on how the Unsanity Collective figures in the finale. I would definitely put this up next to Batman Annual number 5, the Clown Hunter story, as one of the best things Tynan's done during this Batman run.
Yeah, what do you think?
Ditto.
All right, so I think we're all going to do this, but thumbs up, thumbs down, or neutral?
Thumbs up.
And
all
both
the thumbs
toes.
up.
All the thumbs up.
And both toes.
Both toes.
All right, so Nightwing number 84. Nightwing is fighting in Bloodhaven and moves to Gotham, is ambushed. Batman comes to team up with him and says that he wouldn't let his son be taken out by an ambush. And Barbara in the clock tower reveals that she is going to become Batgirl to fight the anti-Oracle. What do you think of this issue?
Well, the heart dude isn't even in this issue, right? So they were like doing the whole thing with the heart dude, the heart removal dude, and now I thought that would be his Fear State, but it's totally not. Whatever. I think it's silly to have Batman in all these books. Like, Batman is showing up a lot, and it's like, he's very busy. And this is all the same event. Like, you could bullcrap your way through it and say, oh no, it's just his last week or whatever. But this is all happening at the same time. And Batman is in a lot of places. And it's a little weird. I like that Barbara's back, but it's a little weird since they've been fighting that for so long. And now she's like, no, I'm Batgirl again. Like, what? It wasn't bad. It sounds like I'm complaining. I'm not really. It was fine.
I am still trying to get used to the new Batgirl suit, so give me some issues to get my grasp of that. But
it looks a little wrinkly in this issue and this art style.
I think that was the actual design, that it wasn't supposed to be form-fitting. I think that's what I remember reading.
I think I'm looking at her cape, though. Like, her arms look super wrinkly, but I think that's her cape resting on her arms.
Yeah, I believe the costume itself was supposed to be more loose-fitting than the rest of the family, compared to the rest of the family. But, yeah, it was kind of weird that Heartless wasn't involved in this story. It's an interesting point from what Steph is saying with regards to Batman showing up all over the place. Again, it messes with the continuity of things, trying to figure out where in the timeline we are with everything. But it's always good to see, Batman and Robin team up again. But I will tell you, I did get a little teary eyed when Bruce said I wasn't gonna let one of my sons die.
Oh.
That was quite touching.
I would agree that the Batman and Nightwing team up was well done. I did not like the Batgirl suiting up scene. It felt very awkward, and I simply don't buy it because I don't think Taylor is selling me on what Barbara's plan is. It also doesn't help that I have personal issues with Robbie Rodriguez as a person, but I normally like his art. In this issue, I really didn't like his art, and maybe it's the contrast with Bruno Redondo. I really have loved Bruno Redondo's art, and this is different. I can see why they picked Rodriguez because there is a similarity, but it just feels less in control. The wrinkliness of the suit, I think, is actually a proportional issue. I don't think that Rodriguez did a good job of the proportions on Barbara's body, making it look ill-fitting, almost like a Frankenstein body.
Her head looks a little small in that neck part of the cowl.
Yeah, it just, there was just some funkiness on the art that didn't work for me. So we've already kind of mentioned that we don't quite know where this fits on the timeline because, of course, Batman shows up and, Batman's also going around fighting with Nakano and the Parasites and Detective, and he's fighting with the Peacekeepers and Batman. So how is he showing up to fight with Nightwing? It happened somehow.
It does.
Would you say this is essential to Fear State?
Oh, no. I mean, unless Batgirl does something crazy in all the books, or at least some of the major books, no. Like, Nightwing's just showing up to help out, and so far, he's needed help. So, I don't know. It doesn't seem that essential, especially if he's not going to show up or have an effect anywhere else. Unless we want to call this the Batgirl book and Nightwing.
The Batgirl book and Nightwing. Yeah, it's not essential. I mean, it seems like it's almost something that we may be saying about all of these issues, whether or not they're essential or not. And it's probably due to the fact that, again, there is very little mention of what Scarecrow is doing. So, of course, we have Seer and I Am Batman, but of course, Seer is not known as Seer. Here, it's been Anti-Oracle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, things are still just a little bit disjointed, and because of that, some of these stories just don't seem to be as important as a tie-in typically should be.
Yeah, I'd agree. So let's give it a thumbs up, thumbs down, or neutral.
I think neutral.
Neutral.
Yeah, also a neutral for me. Harley Quinn, number 7. In this one, Harley is battling Hugo Strange as she has been for this run, and she's on a camping trip trying to get herself centered with the rest of her support group, but she's also thinking a lot about Ivy, of course. Kevin confronts her about her absentness, even though she's the one who's supposed to be leading the support group, and as they're hiking, she falls off a cliff and tries to come to a point of realization where she acknowledges that Kevin was right, and then Bella Garden, the gardener, rescues her with her vines and says that she has found poison ivy. This, of course, leads to the gardener and Harley Quinn teaming up, as we see in Catwoman. Now, I know that Theo could not... this was the book that was not for Theo, so I will not ask Theo his thoughts on it. But Steph, what did you think about this?
I mean, it's a continuity issue. It's like we're in the same universe at the same time, and Harley is in like 3 places at once right now. Well, no, I guess she's left Batman and she's officially with the Insanity Collective in Ivy's garden. But she's also here for some reason, getting picked up by the gardener. Who, whatever. So, I don't know. Harley's been, I've liked the Harley book. In and of itself, if this was just what Harley was doing, I don't think I'd have as much of a problem with it. It's definitely a more lighthearted book than the other books. Even though Strange is super creepy. But because it's supposed to be a tie-in, it's just Harley makes as much sense as Batman being all these places. And that is it is starting to take me out of the story a little bit, where they're literally connecting it, like you said. Right after this, Harley and Gardner go to Catwoman. So we're supposed to believe that this actually is all really interconnecting, but it can't? I don't know. It's silly.
Yeah, I'm not too bothered per se, but I do feel like, I mean, they're literally outside of the city. So it's like a literal side quest of this story. I guess my question is, we know that reintegrating Ivy, the 2 Ivies, Queen Ivy and Bottle Ivy, is going to happen. In what book do you think it's going to happen?
Jar Ivy.
Jar Ivy.
Oh, Jar Ivy. Do we think it's going to happen in Catwoman, in Batman, or in Harley Quinn?
Catwoman.
Because
I feel like that's where it's been built up the most. Like, Harley is loved and missed Ivy, but Ivy having issues and being separated from half herself has been dealt with in Batman and Catwoman, and it's not going to happen in Batman.
Oh, God, I would hate it if it happened in Harley. I really would hate it if it happened in Harley. But what I wouldn't be shocked, so I'm putting on my Theo over Bat editorial right now. If it was me, I wouldn't let it happen. I would let something happen. The 2 of them either decide, or Queen Ivy were like, nope, keep that thing away from me. It's not me. It's not who I am. And they don't reintegrate with each other. And then we really do get the Queen Ivy story at some point, which would make me very happy.
You know what you could do if you did that? You could keep your evil Ivy who does evil Ivy things, and also have your nice Ivy that can be together with Harley and have a healthy relationship.
Yep, and then that would actually make Ian happy, because he's always had an issue with Harley and Ivy being a couple, because he just thinks Ivy is bad for everybody.
that indeed would be a way to solve the problem. I honestly don't know. I could see the argument for it happening here because they're really focusing on the romance between Harley and Ivy. I could see it happening in Catwoman because that's been really focused on the plot of the separation of the 2 Ivies. And I could see it happening in Batman because that's where we got Queen Ivy. And we know it's going to happen. So even though I think Theo's story idea is a good one, we know they're going to integrate them because solicits have spoiled it. So.
Not if you didn't read solicits.
Well, yeah, listening to this podcast, so tough cookies. In the Ivy jar.
In the Ivy jar.
So I can't tell. I can really see an argument for it happening in any one of these 3 titles. Just wait. It's going to happen in Nightwing.
Oh, gosh.
Out of nowhere. They just integrate Ivies together in Nightwing. Theo's an abstain for this book. So, Steph, thumbs up, thumbs down, or neutral?
I think I gave it a neutral when we first reviewed it. So, neutral.
I'm actually going to give this a thumbs up because it's continuing what I like about this Harley run. That complexity of Harley's madcap energy and her intelligence and redemption. And our last Fear State issue that we're going to cover is Batman Urban Legends number 8. And this has 4 different stories. We have the first in a 3-part story of Batwoman and Batgirl Cassandra Cain. We have a one-shot Professor Pig story. We have the first of a 3-part Azrael story. And we have the first of, I think, a 2-part Outsiders story. And they're all technically Fear State. What did we think of any of these issues, any of these stories that we happened to read?
I really liked the Batwoman one, which is weird because I'm not a super Batwoman fan and I hate Alice. And so the fact that this had Alice and Batwoman and I still liked it, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good story. I vomited over the pig story. I think I tried a couple of panels and then I skimmed. And I was glad I didn't spend more of my life reading that. And the Azrael one bothered me for the same reason that Azrael always bothers me. It's like, this is not my Jesus. This is not my Bible. Stop quoting my Bible. Ugh, drives me nuts. Anyway.
Oh,
and then
men call me Defiler.
Oh, he is the Defiler. And then the Future State Outsiders was absolutely fantastic. I have literally no idea what happened in this story, and I absolutely loved it. I loved his attention to detail. I loved Duke. Duke was so badass at the beginning. Oh, it was so great. And he had a talking tiger friend. It was amazing. And then my favorite part, I think, in the whole issue is when Jefferson comes back to the past and these hoodie guys see him and they're like, hey, you a good guy or a bad guy? And he's like, I'm a good guy. And they're like, oh, how can we help you? It's like, that is such a Gotham thing to say. That's so funny. And then Tim shows up at the end for some reason. But I really liked this issue. Except for a pig. Pig can go die in a fire.
I wish
Azrael can stay. He's just not my favorite.
I like Azrael. But Theo, what'd you think?
So I will agree with everything Steph said, but I will add that my only quirk with the Brandon Thomas story, and it wasn't that it was a bad story, it was a great story. But I don't know, I just think it was almost a bad take I think it was just a bad take of trying to tie Fear State and Future State together. But, oh God, I love this. Like I said, Brandon Thomas is still my top person to take over Batman. And he just... When Steph mentions that those few pages where he's talking with the guys on the street and they're like, yo man, what's going on? You one of the good guys. The first thing that I thought about was the black and white story he did, again, with the kids from the hood and they're just hanging out and like, yo, we help Batman. Yeah, we really help Batman. He has such a great grasp on the characters that he writes. And again, you are looking at the person formerly known as the worst Duke Thomas fan ever. The person who wished death upon Duke, who would want to see him written out of continuity if it could happen. But
do you ever call him Dookie Thomas in your head?
I've called him a whole lot worse. But this is a family-friendly show. But he has made me a Duke Thomas fan, and I would assume that the second part of this will lead to the unannounced Outsiders book that's supposed to be announced in November. But God, just give Brandon Thomas all the Batman stuff. Mm-hmm. Just give him all the Batman stuff. He is. So I've been reading. So I backed one of his. He did a Kickstarter to do a hardcover of his Excellent series. And so I backed that. But while waiting for the book, I went ahead and I ordered a few of the digital copies, and oh my god, it's so good. DC, I will forgive you for all the stupid stuff that you all have done over the past few months, few years, if you give this man Batman. He deserves to be the Batman writer.
I think the one thing we may have learned is that no matter how good you write Batman, if editorial is being a butt, they can't write good stories. So I'd almost rather have him stay on the fringe, writing these awesome stories where he might have a little more freedom than be pigeonholed in a main book. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a really good point after all the Tynan newsletters.
Yes, so I have been reading your articles now, Ian. After making me feel so guilty, I took a little break, but I started to. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how does DC even put a comic book out? Like, they hog tie their writers and then, like, now put out an award-winning 100K story. It's like, what? But you took all my story ideas away. Whatever.
Can't write this. You can't write that. Break them up.
Can't have you
harshly.
Yep.
You know what would have done it? You would have done it if you'd have turned Selena gay again. How about that? That would have did it.
She was never gay. She was bisexual.
Or bisexual, whatever.
Although
bisexual.
That is a perfect example of exactly what we're talking about. Oh wait, no, that was off.
We didn't record that.
But when they say someone is bisexual, it's almost always a cynical grab. Now, again, this is not at all an erasure of bisexual characters or people. That's real, and it's a real sexuality, and it's a real way that people relate to each other. But when a company makes a character bisexual, it's a way of making them queer, but then sort of pass for straight if commercially it doesn't succeed. So I am very suspicious of bisexual characters unless they're written like Ghostmaker by James Tynan, who is bisexual, and so there's more of
and that's how his character started.
Right.
Yeah.
So sorry for the tangent. Don't want to do farther. But Selena was bisexual in the Genevieve Valentine run, and then all of a sudden, no more of that. Just Batman all the time.
He's batsexual.
Who of us is not?
That's true.
All right. So I'll do a quick rundown. I thought that the Cassandra Cain, Kate Kane story was pretty good. I'm worried because I feel like BC has been mistreating Batwoman. I don't think they've done a good job managing her character. But this was a good first issue. I do like the fact that unlike Steph, I like Alice because I think that it's an interesting thing to explore, and I don't think it's ever been explored fully after Rucka sort of set the character up, and I feel like they really need to deal with that better than definitely Bennett did. Pig story, terrible. Did not like it. Don't like the character. Didn't like this story. Whatever. Love the Azrael story. I'm very curious to see how that goes forward. I like that this story acknowledged that Azrael is a heresy. It's not actual Christian doctrine. And I'm hoping that it delves a little more into that and shows the difference between those two things. And then I also don't understand what's happening in Outsiders, and I also thought it was an incredibly fun ride. And I can't wait to read more of it to see if I can make more sense in my head. And I think it will. I'll just need to reread it a couple times with the ending and put it all together. So, thumbs up, thumbs down, or neutral?
Overall, I would say thumbs up, but that is a nasty, nasty second story.
You gotta just sort of tear out the pig story.
Pay for it and then throw it in the garbage.
Yep.
I didn't even read the pig story, so that sucks to be y'all. No, thumbs up for me, but yeah, I knew I wasn't gonna enjoy that pig story. I didn't even bother. But God, just give me more Brandon Thomas, please.
Yeah, definitely thumbs up for me. 3 out of 4 is pretty good for these urban legend stories for me. I've been having more like a 1 out of 4. So, and last discussion point.
You gotta remember, it all started with Grifter. That
I loved Grifter.
Come on,
Where did he
man.
go?
No one's
What happened to
supposed
Grifter?
Terrible.
I'm going to move on to a little discussion of Future State Gotham. The most recent issue is number 6, but I sort of want to talk about the whole plot line, which is that we found out that a lot of answers to questions. So, Arkham Knights, why were all the villains working with the Arkham Knight? Because she was using Hatter Tech. What was the point of the Hatter Tech in the Red Hood story? Well, Hatter was killed, and White Rabbit stole the tech and gave it to someone who has been selling it to villains who have been using it in various circumstances during the Future State. And I am just really kind of amused at the way they have integrated Hatter Tech into both Future State and Fear State. It's key to both of those plot lines, and I think they were meant to mirror each other. But I also think that it's clear that Fear State is not going to lead to Future State. We are not going to go to the Future State world at this point. It's an alternate future. It's not what's happening now.
Which I think I actually like Future State better. Like, I really enjoyed the stories and the connectivity of Future State a lot more than of Fear State. Not that Fear State is awful. It's not. It's fine. But I think I really liked a lot of the Future State stuff.
But my only question, though, is considering what we saw in Outsiders, where they specifically talk about Scarecrow's toxin and how Scarecrow's toxin and what happens with Jonah kind of helped lead things into Future State as well. So while I still believe that it's a different timeline, they're really trying to keep it together.
We'll have to see. I mean, I'm firmly of the case that it's just not connected anymore.
No, it's not. But it is starting from the whole Scarecrow working with the magistrate thing, and they just took two different routes.
And I really don't want it to tie in together. No. I don't want Future State. Those stories were just, outside of Catwoman, those stories were just bad.
I am liking Future State Gotham. I'm liking Fear State better in terms of the quality of the individual titles, but in terms of cohesiveness, I would tend to agree with Steph. There was a bit more cohesiveness, and I'm not sure why that is. I think it's partly because Tynan's disengaging. He's leaving, so he can't be as engaged in tying everything together anymore.
Well, also Future State was like a very, very, very short fantasy thing where you could tell every writer exactly what to do and know where every character was going to be to tie it all together, whereas now we have, 10 ongoing series that all somehow connect but don't really, and also Batman and Harley are everywhere.
But I feel like Joker War was more cohesive. I don't know. It had a couple issues, but I do feel like it fell together a bit more at this point.
I feel like we complained about the tie-ins for Joker War a lot.
We did complain about them. Maybe it's just me being nostalgic.
I think you're being nostalgic.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. With the exception of maybe that one Castellucci issue where stupid Barbara goes and digs out a damn chip.
Don't remind me.
Yeah, I don't know. You kind of on your own with the whole Joker War thing.
Yeah.
Well, Catwoman and the Detective Comics and the Joker War Zone, they all tied in really well.
Yes.
But nothing else did.
Yeah, nothing else did.
Yeah, it would be fair to say that nothing else did.
There was one issue of Batgirl that could have come close if Castellucci knew anything about tying up some loose ends. But, yeah, it was Castellucci, so you know how that ended.
Yep. All right, so...
and this Future State Gotham had the best backup.
Oh, yes.
Because all the other backups have been horrid, and this one was a Jimenez Damian Bruce story, which was delightful. From, Black and White number 5?
Yep, yeah. I think it was number 5.
It was the same as the Lee Weeks issue.
Yeah, I call it the artist issue, because that was the issue where all of the artists...
Yeah.
It was my favorite issue of that run.
Oh, sure. Yeah, easily.
Because that was Jamal Campbell, too, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Oh, yes. Okay, so I don't have any serious listener feedback this time, so if our listeners want to send us any, we'd be happy to read them next time. We have gone a little longer than I thought I would, but I'm glad we took this time because I really wanted to dig into to Fear State, and I hope that this has given some clarity for our listeners who are curious, but maybe not reading everything in Fear State. So I hope this gives us a little, like a roadmap of what we're doing. Next time, of course, we're going to be covering Batman and Detective Comics, but the episode after that, we'll again do another catch-up with what's happening in Fear State. So, I want to thank our patrons. We have a lot of affiliate links where you can buy nerdy stuff like Lego and Amazon and Comixology. But we also have our Batfan Appreciation Wall, which members of our Patreon who support at a certain level are put on this wall. And so I'd like to thank Donald Townsend, Lisa Slack, Gerald Green, Ian Miller, Stanton's Grave, Captain America, Austin Davis, Brendan Roberts, Tim Garassi, Donovan Morgan Grant, Stephanie Mounts, Joshua Lappin-Bertoni, Ed Grouse, Hannah Garr, Mary Garrett, Johnny McCloskey, Cesar Diaz, Rob O., and Hank Bennett. Thank you all. We really appreciate that you help keep us on the servers and keep this conversation going about the Batman universe. Until next time, I've been Ian.
This is Steph.
And this is Theo.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.